That sounds right, right? Because I mean, unironically, I believe for the most part, like white women have like ruined the nation, and it's I believe that.
Fuck white women.
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts, Mitch and Nathan. Mitch is a former airborne infantry squad leader who now spends most of his time coaching soccer. Nathan is a professional illustrator and an avid shooter with a couple of years of Canadian military experience. Together, they run the Seaburn Art Page. Enjoy the show.
Was it an example?
Oh no. So fun fact, actually, let me get shifted here. I registered as a cam girl on my free cams years ago. I've got several friends who do it. And I myself never like have gone on display, but my artwork gets ravaged, so I don't have to. So I would hang out and draw, like anime girls getting railed by like tentacles or gangbanged or whatever. And then I could auction those pieces off on social media to my fellow degenerates, and it was excellent. And it was really fun to just sit there and, draw some screaming hentai girl and make a bunch of money for it over the course of the night and talk shit. And it was awesome. And when you're registered as a cam girl through my free cams actually puts on a ton of events like all over the place. So I would get into AVN for free and spend like a whole week as one of the girls, like being able to go to penthouse suites and have free dinners everywhere and like escorts and like girls only environments if I felt like it. And then they also put on events like all over the nation they host suicide girls and other kinds of like shows and whatnot. So it just kind of gave me free access to this really fun world. And so before I moved to Seattle, like 3.5 years ago now, I've done a lot of jobs, grew up doing contracting and stuff like that. But one of my favorite jobs that I had done was I was DJ and manager at a strip club in Northern California for a long time. So being a stage manager was super fun. Yeah. Like my job was to, round up the girls and make sure that, they were in line and be like, okay, Jade, you're up after Honey, who's up after Savannah. Like, let's go. And then the whole night I would be emceeing, and the girls would actually tip me as the DJ as well, which was really fucking awesome. So at the end of the night, I would be walking home, depending on the night, with a bunch of money from like both people and girls alike for playing music, which that was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that is not the answer that I expected.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
Holy shit.
There's a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's a ton to unpack there. Don't apologize. Yeah, no. That's incredible. No.
So I'm
just like, are you a cam girl? No, but
so how?
I mean, that's yeah.
What's the most that you have made auctioning off one of those pieces, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, like one of the slutty ones, or just like in general?
Both. Fuck it.
I mean, art in general, like I've had people buy pieces for, 4 digits. But when it comes to like my regular artwork that I just kind of pitch, usually a couple $100, starting. Yeah. So like, I mean, I'll start at 50, and some of them will stay kind of low depending on. It's tough with Instagram because there's a lot of shadow banning that happens.
Oh, there's so much shadow banning.
I draw like whether you're in guns, the sex industry, or like selling any kind of like drug, like marijuana or whatever, like they censor the ever living fuck out of you.
Yeah.
And when you combine those things, you get the online Karen crew and Zuck Nation who take their sweet fucking pleasure out of just decimating any chance you have at getting out there. But even with that, despite all that, online, I'm still able to usually make a couple $100 a piece, which is, cool for me when the pieces, take usually maybe 15 minutes for some of them, like full color and stuff.
Holy shit. Paige, that's incredible. I in my control queue folder for all of the merch, I have several pieces by you, actually. Alex really, really likes them.
Really?
One that I really enjoy is, I think it's just, what's the folder called? Ahegao.
Oh, ahegao? Yeah.
Is that how that's pronounced?
Yep. Ahegao. Yeah.
I never knew that.
The anime sex face.
I thought it was like ahegao or something.
No, ahegao. It's, I mean, that's like... That's like sexy Japanese French. Mm-hmm. What's that? That's the ahegao face. Maybe that'll be like the covert, dog whistle of fellow degenerates. Ahegao. Yeah. Well, I'm a man of culture.
You're a man of culture.
I shop at Target. I make
Target.
have ahegao face.
No, I asked about the money because my wife does art too, and she's made, and some pieces she makes a lot of money on because it takes a lot of time. She doesn't do digital art, but she should if it's fucking 15 minutes
usually
of your
does acrylic,
time.
right?
And yeah,
Well, the ones I auction usually aren't digital. So I've been doing art literally my whole life. And people are like, "How long have you been doing artwork?" Like I have the oldest piece I own is from a year and a half old. And I actually posted that on my Instagram. I have it on there. It's like I've done art. I can't even say I do art. Art does me. Like I don't it's something where if I
literally.
don't create, yeah, if I don't create, like it creates like borderline how an addict might behave, like not having something. Like my anxiety skyrockets, like I can't sleep, I can't focus. Just surprisingly enough, because I feel like it's a little bit relevant, I actually I'm a huge lover of the medical sciences. I was actually going to go to school for neuroscience. I was going to go to UC Davis. In school, I've always had exceptional grades and had, with student government, straight A's, college courses, all those things. And I wanted to go into neuroscience. But as we all know, college as a privatized institution is basically just used to rape you for your money, and then you spend it's not like the 90s anymore where you graduate and you're like, what job do I choose? It's more like, who will take me? So, unfortunately, at the time, I didn't have the financial resources. Even with scholarships, even with financial aid, it was not enough to afford medical school. There was no fucking way. And I had to like make a decision. You're 17 years old and you're like, do I sign into a life full of debt or do I wait it out a little bit? And so I chose the latter. And most of the things that we can access anyway, or like that we learn from, in school, you can still find online. Like I subscribe to medical journals and read abstract studies. If I don't understand something, I look it up. Like there's textbooks available that we can still read and engage with. Whether or not it's actually in a classroom doesn't really fucking matter, right? So I can still study things. I'm no expert, but I know a thing or two about a thing or two. And with that, in like high school, I would like kind of fuck with myself and try to play some experiments as far as what it was like if I wasn't creating or what that was going to be like for me to not do things. So I'd be like, okay, I'm going to abstain from doing artwork for X amount of days and just kind of see how it affects my life. I was plenty busy with sports and stuff like that. So it wasn't hard to not fit it in. But like throughout the day, all throughout school, I drew in all of my notebooks, on all of my notes, everything. And when I didn't have that, it was fucking maddening. Like I couldn't, like not having that outlet, I didn't usually last more than a few days.
I totally understand.
What
that.
sports did you play, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh God, I did softball for 9 years. I played tennis for a couple years. I did soccer for several years. I helped my dad coach football. I wasn't allowed to play football, but I wanted to. And just whatever, like, whether it was wiffle ball in the backyard, like I grew up riding motorcycles. I think I was on my first motorcycle when I was 5. I love rollerblading. I've always done rollerblading. I still do it. Love it. I'm no like X Games person, but I'm not afraid to fuck around and find out. But whether it's wakeboarding, I like snowboarding. But as far as like on an actual team competing, that was tennis, soccer, track, and softball.
So even being that active, that mentally stimulated, that physically stimulated, you still had to come back to art as an outlet.
Yes. And I growing up, there was a lot of pressure. It was perhaps a illusion of freedom and choice sometimes, but ultimately, for myself, I had very, very, very demanding things, and emotionally, it was very, very difficult for me. I had a. It's funny when people talk about, nowadays about how someone with my color of skin being light skinned can't understand like oppression or not being able to be heard. I'm like, every day of my life that I went home, like I didn't have a voice. It was like I was always invalidated. I didn't have anyone really to listen to me. And it was, for lack of going into it too much, a really, really, really emotionally abusive household. And for me to cope with that, I had artwork, and art quite literally saved my life on many instances, right? When you have a place where all things are out of our control in some instances, I had a place where I could create and destroy and kind of play God. It gives you a hand in having some semblance. Maybe it's an illusion, but at least on paper it was real. I could be anything, anywhere that I wanted to be. I could be with anyone I wanted to be, imaginary or real. And I was able to create these worlds that gave me the stimulus and the desires that I wanted fulfilled. And that was invaluable to me. So much so that actually when I moved out when I was 17, and have been on my own since in that way. And when I moved out, I found myself being in a position where I actually didn't have that negative stimulus anymore. And when I didn't have that stimulus, all of a sudden, I was making up situations for myself in which I wanted that drama, that frustration, or that negativity because I didn't know how to create without it. And actually, that time in my life was probably the greatest lapse of creative flow I've ever had in my life to date. Was in that year after moving out and not having that constant negative pressure, having to realize that I was creating it for myself to just create that emotional stimulus. And it was pretty crazy. So I had to effectively reinvent my artwork at that point. And it changed a lot of things, both in myself and in my work.
Yeah.
So with your
that's interesting. After yeah.
So with your art though, so obviously right now it's everything that's public, at least for the most part, is lewd pictures, the anime stuff. Did you do that years ago, like in high school? Did you start doing that afterwards when you moved out? In that lapse you were talking about where you kind of had to reinvent everything? Or was that just something that's always been around?
So I think I was doing commissions by the time I was about 11. I've been doing galleries since my early teens, around the same age. I've been doing live art performances since I was about 12 in junior high. So for me, art was always a public display. Like as a person, it's funny how like things have evened out now. I'd like to think that I've, matured since the fourth grade or whatever. But as a kid, I was such a fucking spaz. And it was because, I would be frustrated at home, and then I'd be able to be free if you were, at school or other places or amongst my peers. And it was pretty wild. And for me, I was never afraid of putting my art on display because even if kids didn't like me, even if my peers didn't like my mortal form or who I was outwardly, they wanted and desired my regurgitation of my perception of the world. They wanted the deepest part of who I was. So I didn't even care if they liked Paige so long as they liked what I was creating because that's who I am. So I always had that level of self-actualization that gave me a perspective that I learned later that not many people tend to get at that age. And having approval is what so many people aim for. I've never felt, even where I grew up, where I felt like a lot of things, wasn't enough, like grade wise or whatever. I never felt like I wasn't approved of because I did have approval in my life of the things that I did, and I nurtured those things. And that enabled me to keep creating and not be afraid of it. I wasn't afraid of criticism. I was fine with being disliked because for the most part, people didn't dislike my artwork.
Well, and with that art that you do, especially, it's a very niche group, and it's also shamed. I don't know if shame's a word. It's made fun of more, I think. It's, I think, become more common that people can actually come out and be like, oh, I like anime. I like anime titties. Like it's cool.
Oh, yeah, that kind of art, yes.
But it's something that has been and continues to be looked down on if you kind of like you kind of get made fun of. You're like, oh, why do you like that girl getting fucked by 8 different tentacles? What's going on there? But we don't kink shame here over at Seaburn Art. But I'm just curious, when did that start?
I mean, you kink shame.
I don't kink shame at all. I got nothing.
You kink shame all the time.
Who? Oh, I don't kink shame you. I just tell you to stop being horny all the time.
Bonk, you go to horny
all
jail.
the time, consistently with Nathan.
All the time. I just want to play tennis, Mitch.
Nathan, you have to know that situation. Can we talk about that situation?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not on the podcast.
I'm gonna give rough context for you, Paige, and I want your opinion on this.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Give it to me.
Girl reaches out to Nathan and says, "Hey, I want to go play midnight tennis with you." From there,
she's not kidding.
They play midnight tennis, and then it turns into, "Hey, I want to go lay down on a mattress somewhere."
Okay.
I mean, that lacks crucial context.
It doesn't.
Mitch, I just want friends to play tennis with.
Nobody's texting you at midnight to play tennis if they aren't trying to be around inside or near you.
If they are trying to get some
exactly.
dick. Is that what you're saying? Here's the thing.
Mitch,
ultimately, we're adults. It's what it is. When
exactly. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, it's just like wrong with it. I just want to play tennis at midnight.
When it comes to things at midnight, all right, let me give you a quick thing. I was in Texas with Lando after his mother passed away. And the thing about Texas is this: they have more tigers than anywhere in the fucking world, right? Because it's an ideal climate and you're legally allowed to have them. So Texas is effectively fucking keeping tigers alive.
Have fucking tigers in Texas?
Because tigers. So
Mitch,
yes.
Wait, like fucking it's like tigers, like tigers from the jungle.
Yes. Texas has one of the world's largest tiger populations.
What in the fuck is going on?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mitch, this has been a thing for a long time. Yet? So that being said, I'm in Texas and I desperately want to see a fucking tiger. I've been thwarted many times from actually having one-on-one interaction with tiger. It's been in my grasp, literally, and taken away from me so many times. It's tragic. That being said, I decide I'm going to make a post on Texas Craigslist. And Lando's like, yeah, good fucking luck. It's Texas on Craigslist. And I'm like, I'm an ass. So I was like posting at midnight because we're laying in bed. And I post about being like, hey, look, I'm like, here are these stats that I'm familiar with about Texas and their tiger population. Whoever has a fucking tiger, I'm dead fucking serious. Like, I will cook food. I will bring it to you. I don't care. Like, I'll pay money. I want to touch your fucking tiger. And I got the type of response you would expect from making a midnight tiger post. So like with your midnight tennis, there's an expectation, even very clearly laying out that all I wanted was to have my fucking tiger experience. I instead got met with midnight tiger expectations.
Thank you.
It's just the midnight expectations.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying, Nathan. And then he texts me.
Mitch,
he's
I feel like that's more a problem with culture and people than it is with me wanting to play tennis.
He just texts me. He's like, I just want to play tennis. And I'm like, Nathan, it's more than tennis.
I don't even like tennis.
It's more than
something
tennis.
to do.
Anyways, let's.
I mean,
go ahead.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think that's great. Do it anyway. Fuck it. Fuck them.
You know what? Yes, I'm going to assume the most of someone until they pull my pants down without my permission. But regardless,
so back to that though, we don't king shame here. You know, you're into what you're into. But when did that style of art start with you? Maybe not public, but when did you start to draw that stuff?
I mean, oh God. Porn shit. I think I was drawing porn shit by the time I was like 12. I'm just like, this is crazy. I can do whatever I want. It's fucking artwork. Like whatever.
Is it because
and like
were you exposed like exposed to porn? I mean, I was probably exposed to porn when I was 12 too. I think that's probably around the time.
No, I mean, come on, you're kids. People see fucking Playboy magazines, shit like that happens. Like anyone in this day and age, like who thinks that yes, it's like sex is just so readily available. And that was something is like sex has never been an uncomfortable subject for me. Like I wasn't someone who was ever promiscuous. I wasn't somebody who ever felt the need to like hide from those things. Like something I feel like, you know, my parents did right is like anytime I had a question, it was answered. It wasn't like, where do babies come from? Oh, there's a stork and whatever. My parents were like, there's a penis and a vagina. You know your parts, you know your brother's parts. There's a sperm and an egg. That egg is fertilized, like how chickens are made. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so like 6-year-old Paige is having to explain to people where babies actually come from because the kids my age didn't know, right?
Oh, so shit.
I always had a very like, I feel biological, like textbook approach to those things that was given to me, which was appreciative. And then like in my family, you know, my grandma and grandpa, I'm the oldest of like, I don't know, 30 some odd fucking cousins. Like I am That's how it was. My grandma and grandpa got married really young, like 15 and 17. My grandma had my dad by 18, and my dad was the first one born, and then they had me fairly young. And so my grandma was basically the age of a parent when I was born, right? So I was very close to my grandparents. And my grandma was kind of a child of the 60s a little bit, coming out of, Southern California and stuff. And it's funny because they were just always really open people. Like my grandma was just like, she'd tell her kids, my uncles were basically like my big brothers. She'd be like, you guys practice on yourself before you practice on someone else. Like, wash your dick, masturbate before you make decisions. And I'm like, Grandma, you're so smart. Like, I don't know how many kids in high school end up telling I'm like, hey, you need to rub one out before you make any choices.
Jesus Christ.
Like, that's just good advice. And for that, I think because I didn't have, like, any questions I had, I could have answered, right? And it was answered in a respectful way. And there wasn't any weird, like, taboo around it. So I didn't feel the need to lash out and experiment or something like that. Instead, for me, it was just like, oh, these are these things. And I understand that right now I don't find these things desirable, or I don't want to give myself to somebody in that way. So I didn't until I was like 18. So ultimately, having that, just as far as like how the porn thing goes, it wasn't like I was some like porn obsessed like kid or like abused or something. It was more like,
it exists.
To be fair, I was 12 when I experienced 4chan, and I
God.
basically was raised on 4chan through like high school. And it's
that
funny
explains so much.
4chan made me, but it's one of those things where I felt like I had exposure and was able to sift it in a way that wasn't, immature. My parents didn't fucking know I was going on 4chan.
No, of course.
Like, you have a friend who gets a computer, who gets a computer in their room, and their parents don't give a shit. And you're like, I'm going over to their house because their parents don't know, and then you guys are sitting there up till 3:00 in the morning, on
dial up trying to download fucking.
Man. Just sending all my friends Lemon Party.
Lemon Party, yeah.
Oh yeah, Lemon Party, Pen Island.
Spin.
Pen Island.
Remember watching all the albino black sheep videos?
Oh,
remember albino black sheep? And like Foamy the Squirrel. The days of
Foamy
like
the Squirrel. That is a dated reference.
Yeah, the first time I saw titties, I threw up. I was like 11 or 12 years old. And I grew up playing this. It was a website. It's been taken down now. It was called Addicting Games.
I remember
Addicting Games. I played the shit out of that.
Games. Well, if you scrolled all the way down to the bottom of the page on the bottom right corner, they had
the flash porn games.
No, it wasn't the flash porn. It was called Addicting Videos.
Oh.
So I clicked on Addicting Videos, and like 11, 12-year-old me, I'm like, oh, what's the most popular video? And I'm like, oh, it's this girl dancing. And all of a sudden she lifted her shirt up and it was like a titty drop. And I remember I threw up. Not because I was like grossed out. I just was like, so
just like what
I thought like everything that I was seeing, like, because my dad's a huge conservative, was on his computer. I'm like, I need to burn the fucking computer.
It's like, I'm going to
like
hell.
It was so. I was
God.
raised very religious too. Like I was an altar boy. I went to Sunday school. I was a VBS instructor, and I saw it, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, I need to burn.
That's some deep shame right there.
Yeah. And I threw up.
That's
the first
so
time I saw
fucking
titties.
Funny.
The next day, though, I went back. I went back.
Yes, you
I went
did.
back.
Attaboy.
No.
11, 12-year-old me. But
that's so fucking
talking
funny.
about that though, some people would be like, you expose like children exposed to porn, and I think it's different if an adult is like, hey, watch this fucking porn, but like it's in the world. If you discover it yourself, like
we are fooling ourselves if we think we can fucking hide kids from it. Yeah, I'm like going.
It exists.
When I have kids, I'm going to like keep them away from it if I fucking can. But I do know they will be exposed.
It's gonna
eventually.
Happen.
I found my dad's porn stash when I was fucking 12.
The Playboy magazine,
and I found out he had an Asian fetish.
But it's like those are those things where I don't know. Like obviously, there's a difference between like kids fucking do weird stuff. Like I remember playing, the smell my finger game with my brother, and you'd like scratch your butthole and be like, smell my finger, it smells like cherries, like because kids do gross, stupid shit to each other. But it's like as kids get older, like I was fortunate to be raised in a place where because there was an understanding of the implications of what was appropriate and what wasn't, I was able to then determine what was right and what was wrong. And something that was given to me a lot was like, hey, you have instincts. Like if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't, you know, like that was very well given to me, I feel like. And I think a lot of kids, if everything's hidden, like I remember being in high school and like being like, no, you can't get pregnant by swallowing cum.
Oh my fuck.
No, you can't get, pregnant from being fingered and he jizzed on your stomach. Like, no, you can spread STDs this way. Like, AIDS can't be spread from someone coughing on you. It's okay, like
Oh,
having to.
What is the
You
name of
have
this
people who
episode going
really
to
don't
be?
know.
It's going to be
What's
like
that?
the sex episode with Paigeosity.
Well, here's why I bring it up though, because there's a lot of folks in the kind of libertarian gun community who think porn is the fucking devil, and you can't masturbate. Like it turns into this weird. I don't want to say weird. It turns into this
Super
religious
political
thing where it's like, porn is so bad for you, yada yada yada. We need to ban porn, and I've never understood it. I can't understand their
Here's
argument
the
to
thing,
it.
right? Like I think this, first of all, so I have a friend of mine, she's a model and she's I feel like I know a lot of models who are like, I'm insecure, so I'm going to model and use the validity of strangers to build my self-worth. I'm like, that's not smart. But one of my friends who does model, she literally started modeling out of spite and she kicks fucking ass at it. She's someone who's just really, really great. And we were talking about the taboo of her industry and basically having this discussion about, she's like, if there's not a taboo, I'm not making the money that I'm making. If it's normalized, I'm not going to it's not going to be lucrative for me. So it's just like how everything has a black market, right? Drugs, prostitution, whatever it is, it incites a value in its inaccessibility.
Yes.
And sex sells. Like that is why drawing the asinine things that I do, and that's not even the gist of my work, right? That account has way fewer followers. It's just fun and interesting. And it's unique to look at people from this industry because, when you're drawing porn or someone's asking you for something specific, like you're meeting someone intimacy first. They're coming to you in what usually is the order of you meet, you date, you converse, you have an intimate relationship, and then maybe find those things out about somebody. All of that's kiboshed, and you're meeting them intimacy first. And that's kind of fucking cool. And I think with pornography, as with all things, everything in moderation, including moderation. People now, in a world of so much fucking dopamine, would rather masturbate to anime girls than work out. That's a problem.
That is a problem.
That's a huge problem. Yeah.
You have guys who are sitting there and complaining about, like, oh, I can't, the fucking download speed on this is slow. And I'm like, men used to hunt. Like, and here you are now.
Mammoths.
Right. So it's like there's something there. And like, that's why, even naturally drawing artwork too in the gun industry, you get in all things, there's little groups and little cliques and whatever. But it's like so many of those same fucking guys who'd be posting shit about cam girls are subscribing to the shit that I draw. So I'm like, it's like a lot of people have this false veneer, right? It's the pedophile who works at the local schools and donates a bunch of money to the park and is at all the community events, right? And then when he gets busted, everyone's like, oh my God, I had no idea. It's the priest who has been hurting young men, but shouts evangelical things about forgiveness and like wholesomeness, and not to, I believe that there's a lot of really positive things in religion. So I don't want you to think that I'm like shitting on that, because I think that spirituality is good for people, but in every single category that humans can place them in, there's going to be people who exploit that to give themselves a platform. That's virtue signaling, right? It's the people who scream how racist people are, and they're like, you're so racist, you're so racist. And I'm like, you literally just told me that you don't think black people know how to get ID or use the internet. Like, what? So you have like that's that compensation. I think we see that in the pornography as well, right? The people who are most likely oftentimes to be against it are going to be the ones who might have either deep shame connected to it in some way, like they can't do it so no one else should because they got in trouble for it or something, or they often feel that it's something that they do connect with, and they don't want anyone to ever suspect that they might be into, some titty slapping bondage on the side or dressing like a girl when no one's looking. Like, that's real shit. Like, in my little veins of obsessive studies, my first big my first big obsession was jellyfish because I love jellyfish. Another thing I went into in my adult years um, was the psychology of fetishes and where they come from. And I thought it was so interesting. Like, you can read books about things and some social justice warrior blog about like the acceptance of bondage and like sexual liberation, but like it goes so much deeper than that. Like reading actual abstract studies and like controlled peer studies of groups of men or women who are anonymous and the things that they come up with. And then you find out that the two most common heterosexual male fetishes are pegging and cross dressing. And this is super, super connected with the fact that in a society now that only elevates women and minorities and whatever, men are still the highest suicide rate, the highest working death rate. They are expected to be these stoic, strong models of society, yet also aren't allowed to be overly emotional or fucking sensitive. You better be super courteous and chivalrous, but not too much, lest you be oppressing women, right? Men are so pigeonholed in this box. Like, no one's cheering for fucking dad bod heroes. Everyone is able to make fun of Thor when he's in a fat suit in the Marvel movie. But if they had done that to fucking Captain Marvel or like Black Widow, people would have lost their goddamn minds. Men, especially by society, because of our genetic predisposition for literal millennia of evolution to build these things, like, yeah, it might just be a societal construct, but the societal construct isn't something you just flip some light switches and fucking change. This is based off of like, epigenetics, right? These studies of outward factors literally affecting our DNA. One of my neighbors actually studied epigenetics for years, and I learned some really cool shit from him about that too, being like outward things affect us. And like in that world, just again, when you talk about people being super anti-pornography or these things like that, maybe some of them really just hate it and think it's gross, or they have an aversion to what some narratives use, I feel, pornography to groom people or to make something more acceptable that isn't appropriate, like fucking minors
Right.
and things like that, right? I can see how that's tied to it. But I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with porn. I think there's something in general wrong with how people process most things, that if they're not, again, everything in moderation, right? So
Yeah,
there's groups
I
of
think that's
people
the
who are,
big thing. And anything is addictive. If like video games are addictive, porn especially can be addictive. Anything can be addictive in the wrong doses, and self moderation is a really important
So
thing.
to the point you just
Yeah.
made though about men being expected to be this macho man, chivalrous person, in a way I guess I can see where people can associate that wrongdoing or that wrong mindset with porn, because most men in porn are fucking hung, ripped, huge, good-looking dudes. I mean, but it's the same thing with women too, and it kind of creates this expectation of both parties. And I'm not saying porn is wrong. I mean, I watch porn and I'm married, but I can see now that I've thought about it, and to the point that you made, I guess I can see their point with that. And I can also, obviously, the grooming and the child trafficking or just human trafficking in general, that's all terrible. I don't think that should be a reason to cancel Pornhub or whatever,
No. And I think that there's a lot of parallels to even the gun industry as there is to pornography, as there is to drugs, right? Which is, it's amazing that people, ignorance really is the seed of hatred and misunderstanding in all things. And it's just like how in the porn world, we want to, or like, I really truly believe that prostitution should be
Absolutely.
legalized. Like I
Is it
grew
not
up in humble,
legalized in the States?
No.
not
No.
no.
It's
Oh.
it is
So
in
there's only a few
Vegas,
states
right?
that it is.
Yeah.
But
That's
Nevada,
that's silly.
yeah,
It's
I
a
don't even know
victimless
if
crime.
all of Nevada
well,
supports
people
it.
speak of self
But
ownership all the time, and then you bring up prostitution, and then they're like, "No, that's for degenerates. People shouldn't be able to sell their own bodies." But it's
what's crazy to me? I remember like my favorite argument to the importance of like prostitution is there are women out there who work specifically with like handicapped men who've been maybe women too somewhere, but there's men who've had fucking half their face burned off and a woman isn't going to look at them. There are men who have crazy fucking rare skin diseases where they don't have, pores that enable them to sweat. So they're just flaky and have to deal with crazy physical pain outwardly with stuff. And like those people have a right to experience pleasure and embrace from another person.
And intimacy.
And I think that when it comes to like even drugs, right? Growing up in Humboldt County, which is one of the weed capitals of the fucking world, right? When you
Hell yeah.
when you shine a light, you're able to cast darker shadows. You can see where those veins are. In Humboldt County, there's a documentary they made about our area called Murder Mountain on Netflix, actually. And it's actually much worse than that. So in Humboldt, right, places like Humboldt County really, really love like anything that supports open border laws, because people go right down to the border and they fill up vans with young girls who think they're going to go be working a farm in California, where they're literally forced into slave rings, pumped full of drugs, killed or worse, and then left to be invisible, right? And they're totally invisible because there's no fucking identification or anything else to help them. And that vein in and of itself, the flow of people coming in, invisible people, is helpful to these industries that exploit others. By making things legal, it hasn't fixed everything, but there are definitely now places where they've been getting pushed out because it's not as lucrative. They have to go somewhere else. And I think in prostitution specifically, people have to hide that. Women get approached by pimps and manipulated after spending a life themselves being perhaps abused or even just making choices to be there. And if they don't have the control over their own body or the power to have that control, somebody else will take it. And then you create a black market. And that black market makes it way easier for women, children, anything else to be exposed to that darker side of things, to be actually kidnapped and exploited and not be able to be pulled out of those things. So it's like if women file a fucking 1099 and they're like, I hump who I want, I'm like, power to you. Same with guns, right? I feel like all things with like education, like when it comes to drugs, like fuck it. Educate people on what drugs do. Educate people on what sex does. Educate people how to drive a fucking car, which vehicles kill more goddamn people than just about anything else as far as like what we can do as humans to put ourselves in a risky situation. And like educate people on firearms in the same way. You have people who fear something or think it's dangerous, and then all of a sudden that ignorance breeds misunderstanding and an aversion to it. I've had friends who are really terrified of weapons, and I'm like, all the more reason for you to understand how to disarm it and make it safe. So I'm like, okay, you are so afraid of guns. I'm like, so let's say you come across one. Wouldn't you want to know how to neutralize it? Yeah. Let me show you how to do that. Let me put this in your hand and show you how to make it not quote unquote dangerous at that point. And that in and of itself has helped me bring people into shooting that you'd never expect, when they understand, like you can make one of the states was doing buybacks, and I saw going around online, this guy had made the 1776 blaster, and it was like out of plywood and galvanized pipe, and they had to buy it back because it functioned.
I remember that. Yeah, $200 for it or something.
Yeah, it was epic. And he was making them for, sub that. And he's like, I'm going to go cash in on some coin. I'm like, this is people don't understand. Like you try to classify something and you can't. Like educate people to the best of our ability and let them fucking make those decisions. I think we'd have a lot better place. But the thing about black markets, as most of us know about like, the CIA and stuff back in the 80s, you have these people who profit on the black market. Pockets are padded every single time somebody out there is making an exchange that's illegal because it's lucrative. And when things are lucrative and they go all the way up to the top, then the people with more power are able to continually make more money. That's how it goes. And pedo rings and fucking prostitution and slave trades, whether it's organ trade throughout the, greater Eastern countries or South America, or even North America, like, you make black markets, you create an incentive to make money from it.
So speaking of money, and this is going to be a little bit off topic, but that's back fine. To your art stuff, because I think that's super interesting. I mean, I work with Nathan obviously, but my wife is a commissioned artist as well. So while I am like incapable of making good art,
You make fine art,
it's
Mitch. I've
around
seen
me.
the.
When did you start to realize that you can profit off of your art or make money doing what you just do anyway? Because, like you said, it's a release for you. It's something that you just do anyways. And much like Nathan, you'd probably just do it if you were being paid to do it or not. But being paid is a great incentive. And I'm just curious, when did that start for you?
Honestly, art was always one of those things that was just so a part of my life that I just did it. And I realized even if it wasn't necessarily super like monetary, in the second grade, I was drawing Pokemon and trading them for quarters, right? Like doing designs of things that people wanted like that. I had some friends in school that we did artwork together, and like we would have like commissions that we do for a quarter or 50 cents. Like I have always been able to profit off my artwork, even from the time I was like 7 years old
That's
in the
amazing.
classroom. So the thing was, is art was always this thing I had as a backup, right? I always did commissions and did galleries. My shtick is like you guys see my digital art, and that's the most profitable, especially during COVID right now,
Yeah.
because I wasn't able to do what I usually do. Was when I first moved to Seattle, I did what I used to do back in my hometown was live charcoal drawings. I now do these live charcoal drawings on stream, but what I would do is go out to the pier and set up this little table and my sketchbooks, and I'm actually fully ambidextrous. So I draw and paint with both hands, and I can draw different pictures simultaneously with both hands. So I would use both hands to make pictures very, very quickly. So my charcoals, I'd go out there and I could make a piece in 3 to 5 minutes. In a few hours, I would make, sometimes over 100 pieces in between conversation. And I always made my art free with gratuity. And free with gratuity was great because I got away from having any weird resellers license stuff. I was always, dressed nicely out there with my dog, playing like good music. Or I'd have like musicians I'd connect with to come play with me. And people were really fucking generous. Sometimes like I'd get $5 for a picture. Sometimes I'd get $105 for a picture.
Holy shit.
But I would literally just stand out there and throw my pieces all over the place, and people would record me and come up and take pieces. And I
That's
could
awesome.
make my rent in a weekend.
That's awesome. There's a. I'm going to connect that connection. I'm going to connect that that story back to something that Nathan and I are talking about. A buddy brought up a point that we should start a Patreon, but Nathan and I immediately were like, no, we're not going to do that. And the more he talks to me about it, the more he makes the point that you're not saying people have to pay you. And Nathan does put a lot of time and effort into these art pieces. I put a lot of time and effort into the guides. If people want to, they can, but they're not forced to. And it sounds like you almost did something similar where you were just like, hey, I'm on stream, or I'm going to, you can make 2 pieces of art with both hands at the same time, which is outstanding. That is an invaluable, unique skill to have. I mean, that's awesome. I would love to see you doing that. It's a weird thing because you put a lot of time and effort into something, or maybe for you can do it in 5 minutes. You've expedited it so quickly. But it is something that the more I hear people that do it, the more I'm like, I'm still not completely okay with it. And I'm sure Nathan still hasn't changed his mind about it either.
I feel weird about it, and it's kind of strange to talk about this, in a podcast. I don't know. I do know that I sabotage myself when it comes to money all the time. So
that's something we both do. And that's something that we're both trying to fix with art. Well, at least I'm fixing with myself. I don't want to speak for you.
No, I have a pretty general formula for art, right? Like even when like people are like, I don't know how to. First of all, I'm really open about sharing like quote unquote trade secrets. I don't think anything should be harbored in that way because all we have is each other to support, right? Yes. And that's always worked very well in my favor to both share and receive from others. But that being said, when it comes to our work, like as an artist, someone's like, I don't know how to charge for my artwork. I'm like, well, first things first, get money back for your supplies. How much are you worth an hour? That's like the easiest baseline formula, right? So if you're spending, someone commissions you for something, like in my case for digital artwork, I don't have any supply costs. There's no supply cost up front. Like ultimately, maybe I can incorporate like a wear and tear, but when I'm able to send a digital file, it is so much less expensive and time and resource consuming, right? So overall, it just benefits both parties. They get work for less expensive. I have less of a mess to pick up and more things to do on my end. That being said, when it comes to Patreon, very recently, I've gone through this myself where I feel like I'm never giving my people enough. It always blows my mind that people support me, but like many of my users have enforced for me. And Nathan, I know you've been in my my Discord. It's a fucking awesome community.
It really is.
Are
actually
so epic. Like,
I drop in every once in a while because I don't use Discord other than just like your Discord and one other that I mod terribly. But it's really nice. Everyone's super cool.
That's great because
it's very
normally Discord's a fucking cesspool.
Yeah, but
it can be. But like I have these people that I'm so blessed to have as my fucking supporters and stuff. And my only rule, really, I only have a few rules. My two major ones are no current event fucking politics. I'm like, if it's on IG and Facebook and Reddit, I don't want to hear it. You put it there. You can go argue there. And then the second thing is that, look, we have people of all, I have multiple like trans, gay, minority, whatever, all fucking over in that thing. And I'm like, we are all comfortable with being with offending ourselves and each other. Like, we are comfortable with offensive humor. If you are not comfortable with that or offensive words, you need to leave. No one is going to outright, like, there's no name calling. Like, you're never going to see someone drop a fucking N-word on someone or like, shout something to like, give someone a hard time. But like, we have trans people making trans jokes and posting hilarious fucking memes about things. It's like, who cares, right? We're there to just have a good time, and it feels like early Y2K internet. But why
that's a good feeling.
Why I bring up them in this instance is because a few of my people, I have some really like just OG fucking supporters, and they're just like, hey, look, Paige, we're here because we just want to support you and we have the means to do so. You don't have to give us more because we already know what we're paying for. We already know what we're here for. Like, if you go to the store with fucking $10 to buy your goddamn groceries or an item, you go to buy that item for that amount and you know what you're getting, right? So you already have an expectation of what's there. I'm not making false promises. They can see what's there. So if you guys are providing it and you're just posting a blog and you're like, hey, we update it sometimes once a week. Like, I have people who are subscribed to my top tier of Patreon. I only have 3 tiers. I have my moral support, which is $1. I have my art bro, which is $10, and they get a print each month. And then my legit fans, which get a print and a sticker each month for $20. I have multiple people who subscribe to my $20 plan and opt out of rewards. They don't want rewards. They just want to support me. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you just got to open the platform and realize that if people are giving you money, it's not because you're asking. You're just out there to be like, nothing's free. Our time is the one finite resource none of us can get back. The only fucking guarantee we ever have when we're born is that we will die. That's it. We're not guaranteed disease. We're not guaranteed famine. We're not even guaranteed fucking opportunity. We are guaranteed death. That is it. And with that, we can always make more money. We can't make more minutes, but our minutes have to be worth something because in a modern society, it takes money to survive.
Well, the thing about what we do,
just doomer Paige moment.
But the thing that we do though, like, I feel like I always have to make a better guide, and I feel like, especially lately, Nathan, whenever we are kind of like talking about ideas, I feel like Nathan is in the same sense that I am, where we always have to provide something better, and I would do this regardless of if we were getting paid or not. And right now we're in the hole. We're in the hole every month. We don't make money. And like you said,
which I'm totally okay with.
I'm fine with that. But I would also be fine with not being in the hole, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I think everyone understands that. You understand that. The people who support you are going to fucking understand that. And I think rather than being better, be whole, be comprehensive. You don't have to constantly best yourself. You just need to provide pieces of something. So it's like, if let's say you're making a guide about guns, right? Well, that's infinite.
Yeah.
You can literally make a post about a CQB training one day, or one about handgun carries, or one about whatever. It's effectively a newsletter from your voice. People are there to hear from you because they fucking like you. Attrition's going to happen. If people leave your Patreon, it's not because you failed. We all have different financial things. Like, I don't I've got people in my Discord that I'm like, I know that they are not on my Patreon because they can't afford it, or just because financially that's not what they do, or they don't support Patreon. That's fucking fine. They're in there building my community and doing positive things. Like that's invaluable. Right. It all has value. And if people can assign a slightly like larger monetary value or asset to that, then great. Those who are able to do, and they do so willingly. You are not and will not and cannot force people to spend money on you. Like, you can't force people to buy things from you. That is 100% a choice, and they have a choice. So I think as people, we sometimes get, not that we're not capable of affecting others, but it's important to realize that like it'd be arrogant to think that you, by posting something, that people would somehow be forced and obligated to help you. No one has any fucking obligation to you. It's desire, and appreciate that desire.
Damn.
That's a very, very, very.
See, and that's the thing, though.
I think you may have brought me around on this idea a little. I was very hesitant towards.
I still am, and it's not. It's weird because right now we have an LLC, and it's a terrible business model because we are paying money and an extreme amount of time into this, which is why we kind of took this week to not post, to kind of give you a break, Nathan, from working on this page because you're doing work for everybody else, and to give me a break because I'm going to fucking Florida. Suck it, nerds. But we do provide something, and I think that's something that we are aware of. We try and make digestible. We try to take easy or difficult to swallow content and make it very digestible, and I think we do a good job at that. The combination of Nathan's art and my sense of humor, and Nathan's fucking throwbacks to all different types of different Halo games and all his little Easter eggs he puts in the art. Like, we make it very digestible.
I'm just a fucking nerd, man.
Yeah, but it's great for people, and I recognize that people really enjoy it. It would be nice to not be paying money into it every month. And I think we're getting...
Yeah, honestly, you are right. It does add up.
It adds up over time, especially when you're trying to move to America.
The service we're using right now is... Yeah.
Well, you got to think too, right? Like, you guys have... Like, you wouldn't make it if you didn't think it was fucking worth something.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Yes, the inherent value of the
novel. And we wouldn't put anything behind a paywall either. It would still just all be there, whether you paid or not.
Right. And I think that the fact that you have inherent value in what you do, other people do value that. And like I said, everyone understands what it means to exist as a human in 2021. Like, we have, at least, you know, in this side of the world, like, you don't pay for gas with fucking exposure. You don't pay for food with fucking exposure. Like, you don't pay for a house with knowledge. It takes...
Like, have you seen the price
currency.
of 556? It's horrible.
Ugh.
Actually, it's getting better now, but it's horrible.
So,
actually,
with that being
50
said,
cents around at my local LGS, so that's nice.
And I encourage you. I don't know how much will get, chopped out of the cast or anything, but it's like, for anyone like who is listening, who's like, oh, should I do this thing? Yes. No one's obligated or responsible to support you, but those who do will. Think about the people you would support. Think about the people that you provide platforms to. Like, even me now. Like, I'm honored to be here and like talking with you guys. Like, holy shit, someone wants to listen to me talk. Like, every time I'm on stream and I'm like listening to my own voice sometimes, I'm like, oh God, like, I hate hearing myself. How is it that you guys like hearing me? Oh my God. But I just have to accept that, like, that's not for me to project onto them. And it's like, when people put their insecurities, like, oh, I don't look good in this. Like, then don't fucking wear it if you don't feel that way. Like, it's like, everyone has a different taste in food. Someone who prefers, sweet over salty. You're not going to try and convince them to like this other thing. Like, they're just going to like it. And different people have different tastes. You guys create something palatable for a group of people who seek out that flavor of your work. Your unique taste that you bring to the industry through your artwork and your ability is something that people seek. And those people should be allowed to support you. It would probably make them feel good to do that.
See, I asked you because just in the short time that I have talking to you, I know Nathan and you have communicated before. This is, for everybody listening, this is the first time me and Paige have interacted.
We play. Yeah.
I asked you because just
I was about
right
to say
off
we
the
play
bat,
tennis, but I realized that that's a bad joke.
You are very fucking straightforward, and I know whatever. I know that when I was going to ask you, it was either going to be fuck no, that's fucking stupid. Here's why, or it would have been like fuck yeah, do it. So I'm always interested to hear people's opinions who aren't going to fucking bullshit us, because there's a lot of people that will reach out and they'll have an offer for something or they'll suggest something, and it's appreciated, but it's very I'm not sure the right word for it.
Are you talking about when people ask you for something?
Yeah. It'll kind of be like a mutual benefit, but it doesn't really benefit us. It's more like, hey, you should do this thing, and then I'll do it. Like, I'll take credit for it type of deal. Or I'll
So,
do this, and, go ahead.
sometimes it's good to, I mean, not that you have to be, it's funny, I'm good friends with, at least I like to think we're friends, Vince, who does Battle Secretary. And he's one of the most like cutthroat people I've ever met. He'll be like, he tries to say things nicely sometimes, but he'll just like be like, no, go away.
Hell yeah.
It's amazing. But that being said too, like I've doing marketing and these things and working with clients, like there are just things that I can't prioritize. In the year that I've been running my own business, right? Just anecdotally here to relate to what you're doing, you have to find on the Venn diagram of stuff is time something takes, how much money it makes, and how much you enjoy doing it. So with those, we cannot prioritize everything. And people will understand that. Some people will be disappointed and not want to hear that. Unfortunately, that's for them to deal with. So sometimes there's people who come to me like, hey, I have this thing I want to do. And I'm just like, I can't prioritize that. I have a list of other clients and this is what I'm doing. If we were to do this, I would need this much money because that's what it's worth. Like recently I did a project where I had to move. It was a rush project and I had to charge them an asinine amount of money because I had to move like the other several people in line down. And I went and I was like, I'm going to communicate with my clients and I will take the time to talk to them and let them know about this deadline. And if they collectively can't move on it, then I'm not going to do it. But if I can do it, I'm going to charge the shit out of you. And I did. And it was one of those things where everyone was okay with it. Like there was transparency. And even, I think it's important to realize that even if you do everything right, some things will still just go wrong. But that's not the majority. And it sucks when it happens, but it's like, don't get hung up on it. I know it's easier to say, like, that's so much easier said than done. Like, oh, well, just don't worry about it. Like, no one just doesn't worry about things. Like, of course we have feelings and obligations, but ultimately you have to weigh things not by, is this right? Or is this wrong? Or is this good? Or is this bad? In business, as well as our personal lives, is this healthy for me, for this relationship? Whatever it is, whether it's putting food in your body, whether it's making a business exchange, whether it's some decision that you're making in your life, is this healthy for me? If the answer is yes, proceed. If the answer is no, evaluate.
Nathan,
right?
you don't
It's
have a
like,
fucking
is this
choice. You're
tequila?
making art for me.
I realize that. You don't feed me if I don't, and
you don't get a choice in this.
Yes,
but it's without.
I'm chained to a radiator
alcohol,
right now.
Right? What was that?
Chained to a radiator.
I'm chained
He's
to
my
a
sex
radiator right now.
He's my art
can't
gimp,
see my
actually.
legs, but yes.
So
it puts the art on the. Yeah.
It's like with alcohol, right? Like,
yeah.
If you're gonna drink tequila, you're going to be like, this I know isn't good for me, but I'm going to drink and have this night. Well, no one feels bad for anyone with a fucking hangover. You're not a victim, right? So in all things, like with work and everything else, if you've made the decision, I'm biting off more than I can chew, but I'm going to take this anyway, even though I feel it in my gut. At that point, you're not the fucking victim. You did it to yourself. And like, karma is not some divine punishment. It's a divine lesson. And in life, you'll keep facing the same lessons over and over because we all have patterns. And if you don't figure it the fuck out, you're going to keep getting hammered by that lesson. So it's like if you keep taking on things from other people and you keep burning yourself out, when are you going to realize, I'm talking to myself here too, to knock it the fuck off.
Yeah.
And be better. Right. So like I've really struggled with that in the last year and a half because I made Paigeosity official in Washington April of last year. So
like as an
during
LLC
that time, I'm just a sole proprietor for now. I have no reason to be an LLC. Like I'm not big enough in what I do. So I did that because when I moved to Seattle, you know, I didn't know anybody. I got a job working in the fitness industry, and was at kind of a bougie gym where I knew I'd make connections, but I was like, I'm broke and single, may as well fucking
Oh,
work.
yeah.
So I did. And I was at a place where I knew I'd meet a lot of people. I had free workouts all of the time. So it was great for my health. And I actually really enjoyed that job. But when COVID hit, I didn't have it anymore. And it sucked because at the time, uh, I had actually taken a hiatus from them for about 8 weeks to do a big art project. And it worked out because they were doing some transitional stuff. And I was doing working on like some marketing stuff as well for them and helping them open another studio. But there was some transition stuff going on. And I was like, well, hey, why don't I dip out to this project for like 2 months? I can afford it. You know, no problem. I'm doing fine. I was like, and then I'll come back. And they're like, great. Well, it just so happened that in those 8 weeks, right at about the end of those 8 weeks, COVID hit. And when you file for unemployment, they want 8 weeks of employment history. So I got no unemployment. I got no government aid. I had no fucking help. And I was like, you know, at the beginning of this, you're like, okay, what the fuck do we do? Right. And there's all this panic and whatever. And I couldn't draw at the pier anymore. I can't exactly go down to downtown Seattle where thousands of people are walking by every hour and hawk artwork and exchange money. Like that would have been a big no-go. And unfortunately, I had to figure something out. I didn't have any help. It was like, get a job at a fucking grocery store or make it happen. So I'm like, okay, Paigeosity, full send. And with that, I couldn't afford to not take what people were offering me when it came to commissions or money. It actually took me a while. It took me a while to make a Patreon for the same reasons that you guys were like, I don't know, like people going to feel this way. And eventually I was like, no, fuck it. Like I had enough people be like, please have a Patreon so I can support you.
Well,
yeah.
And
go ahead.
No, you're good.
So enough just about us trying to have conversations that Nathan and I should probably just have off the podcast. But fuck it, we're very transparent. We're super transparent over here.
You can edit it out, chop up
No.
the
Transparent.
Keep it in. Fuck it. We're gonna be we're transparent here. When did you
transparent here?
Yeah, when did you start moving towards social media with your art?
So actually when I moved to Seattle, so where I came from in a small town, like I had an Instagram and maybe had like sans 500 followers. And in the last like 3 years, I'm now at like 8,000. Still haven't got that magic 10K number. But through being shadow banned and like shit on a lot through the algorithm, I feel like I'm doing pretty okay.
Pretty okay.
But yeah, like I've always done like Facebook. I don't have a personal Facebook. I have a business Facebook. I've only ever really had that.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
I'm not really into it. Like I had Facebook when I was like 18, 19 and like couldn't keep my mouth shut for certain people. Like for example, you'd have the girls, remember the duck face for everything? Everyone had like that pose with their kissy lips and it was like obnoxious. So this started going around on 4chan in high school, but I kept it and always did it to other people. And it was, I would take a hand that was holding a joint and just Photoshop it in front of their mouth and like resend it to them. Or like you'd see a group, like a picture of like a bunch of girls together and one of them would just have like an awful fucking face. And so I'd take that face and I would put it on all of their faces.
Oh no.
That's amazing.
And
I used to do the same thing.
I was such a cunt and it was just hilarious. So I was like, okay, Paige, like you're just being like an asshole. And I had to get off because it was just, I enjoy being a fucker, but like all in good fun, right? Like I didn't actually want to like offend people or hurt their feelings because it's like, it's one thing if people are like, I don't like you because you're a slut. I'm like, well, that's not true. But also I understand that that's coming from a place of your own insecurities. But then you have the ones who are like, I don't like you because you hurt my feelings. I'm like, wow, that is awful. What can I do to fix that? I'm so sorry. So, you know, I didn't want to instigate that. And I realized that it ultimately, as much as people might be good at navigating conflict never actually feels good. I would argue people are like, oh, there's people who love conflict. I'm like, no one really loves it. It's just an emotional connection and it's a strong emotional connection. And for some people who don't fucking feel anything or have a lot of anxiety or anger, it's like the social media equivalent of fucking cutting yourself. you have a moment where you can control this outward lash and get attention, and it gives you a feeling, right? And it's a strong feeling. And I think people connect with that more than they actually do with the concept of conflict in and of itself.
Well, you also have a very
I honestly
aggressive
feel
sense
like
of
people
humor.
get addicted to it. Yeah.
I can. I definitely have a necessary.
It's not a bad
I don't
thing.
really per se change, but I do think that there are times where it's not appropriate. So there's, there's just, you learn how to filter yourself through years of retail. But I've found that in my life of sales, like, cause I did sales for a lot of times too, right? And like, I've never had a sales job, not to be like, I'm so good, but it's like, I've never had a sales job that I wasn't ranked top in the nation at, whether it was like selling trees and tickets at Costco when I was 18, or selling cell phones at the wireless kiosk, or selling shoes when I was at Payless at 16. I was always like super high ranked in what I did. And it was because I didn't need to lie. Like, I remember I worked the cell phone kiosk and I had this just garbage can of a manager. He later got fired for like sexual harassment, no surprise. But he ended up like being that person who would just straight fucking lie to people. Like, I remember him holding a flip phone, telling a woman, she's like, "Can I send pictures to my grandkids?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, of course." And I'm like, "Hey, Dax, that phone doesn't have a camera on it."
There's like a lot to unpack because, well, for starters, there's so fucking much. You're a very aggressive talker, which it's not bad, but
it's not bad. It's actually wonderful.
Yeah, like
I feel like this is the
us.
podcast I've had to think the least about, because you can
the least about.
You just like, we give you a direction, you just fucking go, and it's wonderful.
We went from prostitutes.
I'm glad you like it.
We went from prostitutes, porn, what you did in college. 12-year-olds, me puking at tits.
Beautiful.
We've kind of went all over the fucking place, which is whatever, You're just here to have a good time.
That's pretty great. I'm not complaining.
Lord knows, maybe it's because I spend so much time alone, like doing my artwork. Like, it's funny because a lot of people will think I'm really extroverted, and it's like, this is what happens when, like, I guess a nerd like stat dumps into charisma or something. But it's like, I spent a lot of years arguing and getting pretty good at arguing. So I guess I'm not really afraid to talk, but at times I'm like, well, it might not be received well, Paige. Maybe you should just shut the fuck up. So I've had to learn the hard way a lot how to shut the fuck up in my life.
When did you get involved with guns, though?
So hard.
Oh, guns. So I've never been afraid of guns. Maybe this part would be redacted. I don't know. But my piece of shit ex used to like, mill out ARs with his friend who's a cop, and then they would like sell those because my ex had like a bunch of fat grows and stuff that he did. And that's actually how he made his millions. He ended up opening some dispensary like a couple years before he ended up cheating on me with his secretary, which is actually why I moved to Seattle. So fun fact, I was with someone for 8.5 years, and it was actually the best thing that ever fucking happened to me, because I'd wanted to move my whole life out of my shitty little town, and it was finally the excuse. But I had been kind of into guns back then. I'd always like grew up in a place where if you call the cops, it takes hours to fucking get there. Like, our own house had been broken into because people thought there was a grow there when there wasn't. Like, when I was like at my family's home, like shit like that happened all the fucking time. So, it was important to know how to defend yourself. I was never afraid of guns, grew up on motorcycles or like shooting cans and whatever in the backyard. But it wasn't really until I got up here to Washington and became friends with Roy, and then,
Roy,
got into shooting. What's that?
Roy, the Landalorian.
Oh yeah. No, that Roy is the owner of Weapon Outfitters.
I am an idiot. I forgot what Lando's
Jackson is the Landalorian. That's okay.
I just thought his name was.
It's funny
I just
at
made
this
that
point
up
because
because I've had 4 White Claws.
No, that's great.
How did the mosquito get in my house?
It's funny because there's been a lot of people who thought like Roy and I were married because he'd like post about me, and like Jackson and I are together. We've been together now for a while, but that's how we met through there. But I naturally just kind of got into guns. Like, Roy had some stuff and I'd always wanted to learn. And being from California, it was unfortunate, but I never really got to experience things to the full extent. So now I was in a place surrounded by people who are so fucking smart and know so much. Like Jackson's been to so many classes. He's certified in so many different things, like getting to do one-on-one training with people who are engineers of high-level military optics for, B.E. Myers and shit, hanging out with my dumb ass, teaching me how to shoot because they do like competitive shooting. And I'm like super excited to learn all this stuff. And like, I'm just completely ignorant, and getting the opportunity to have a gun in my hands and learn like beyond just the physics behind it, but the handling behind it. Like I'm super comfortable around them, and it's been really, really fun. I don't pretend to be good. I'm not. I mean, like I aim at a target and I hit. That's all we can hope to do, right?
That's kind of 99% of it. So, I mean, not really, but let's pretend.
There's a lot of like art and finesse to it, right? Like I've done martial arts now for about 7 years. I'm working towards my black belt, and it's funny how many things translate. Yeah, I'm very passionate about martial arts. I'll actually be hopefully opening a dojo here in the next year with someone else.
Holy shit! What will you be teaching?
Some really, really epic traditional stuff. Basically, it's called Ichibo Tenchido, but it's a mishmash of hardcore Japanese Shotokan and Okinawan like foundation, and then Chinese martial arts as you progress through the ranks. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, that translates a lot. Just even like finding your breath and finding your movement and working towards things. Like it's funny to me how many people say, "Oh, I can't do art. I don't do art," and I'm like, art is not how well you can replicate perfectly material objects around you into paper. Like art is a practice in which you create something or have a practice that I think builds strong emotional or like inspirational like bonds through things. Like shooting is an art. To pull something out at a high speed and aim with perfect breath and stance, with a fucking Glock to hit it 50 yards or something just every single time. That's incredible. Whether it's martial, whether it's cooking, whether it's dance, whether it's fighting, everything has an art, right? I mean, ask the Japanese. They literally have whole books on the art of organization and literally, archery or flower decorating. Like it doesn't matter, right? You can find an art in anything. And I really, really love that aspect of shooting. I love the aspect of at least everyone that I've surrounded myself with or had the pleasure of being surrounded with in this community has only been super accepting, excited to share their knowledge, excited to learn from each other, and always focused on safety. It amazes me how many people act like they have this depiction of the gun industry of being a bunch of, fat Confederate flag waving, guys yelling racist things with their mustaches. And I'm just like, that's not.
Yeah. They can get fucked.
No, and that's not what it is. Guns are for fucking everyone. Like I work with this lady. I say work with. She's a friend of mine. Her name is Sharon Hinchcliffe, and she's actually one of the nation's leads, or is the nation lead for something called the Pink Pistols, which is the LGBTQ.
Yes, the Pink Pistols.
She's fucking epic. This woman is like in the pouring fucking rain at the Capitol at 6 a.m. fighting for our rights. And she is like alone worked so hard to bring like suicide prevention and awareness, like rights to people who are minorities or marginalized, like for weapons. Like it's amazing. She does amazing
We should try and get her on the podcast.
We have these. Oh, actually, I'm sure she'd like to. I would totally get her on here.
Yeah.
She's an epic lady, and she can talk about all kinds of stuff. Real cool gal.
That sounds wonderful. Let's do that.
Yeah, she's in my Discord. Nathan. So you can just hit her up.
Shit.
She's in there all the time.
If you don't mind, I've had 4 White Claws, so I would appreciate the reminder. But I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd love to be on. She's fucking awesome. And when it comes to, a lot of people like to shoot, but they don't. They'll go out and shoot, and like the literature behind that's important. The activism, like the activism behind that's important. And being with a group of people who, every single time we do anything, it's always focused on. It's always focused around like safety and communication. Like I remember not long ago, I was out with Weapon Outfitters. We're all together, and we're in a shooting pit, and there were some other people who came by. and they got their guns or whatever, and we're like, well, hey, we're just about to do a safety brief, like, you're welcome to come through. And keep in mind, these guys have all shot who knows how many thousands, tens of thousands, collectively millions of rounds between them, and we're getting ready to do a safety brief, and these fucking guys are like, oh yeah, no, we're good, we know. We're like, well, you actually can just keep going.
That's
then.
dumb fucking arrogance.
Like, that's
dumb arrogance,
right? And it's like, even here are people who've been shooting some for their whole lives or whatever. And it's like, here's the person in the event of a fucking emergency. Here's where the shooting line ends. Like, you respect range cold or range hot. Like, it's not cool to be a dipshit. I actually compare it a lot to, of all things, the BDSM community. It's like when you get people who are like, oh, who fucking cares about consent? Like, who cares about limitations? Like, you're not really a masochist if you don't like these things. You're a submissive. And they're like, you can get fucked because that's not how this dynamic works at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's that same kind of concept where it's like, if you don't respect safety, like, that is the number one priority of this community, is safety and education. And like, I mean, yeah, we're there to have fun, but it's like that is the priority all the time. It's like, even if you're in an office with a bunch of people where they all know that gun is unloaded, like, it is showing clear and unloaded, they all still treat that gun like it's loaded. And like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Good. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think what has really attracted me to this community is the fact that there is just that, like, real community. Yes, there's elitism. Yes, there's extremism. That exists within every subculture in this fucking planet. And most people aren't that way. The majority of people aren't that way. Like, I have a belief that extremism really exists online. Like, it's pretty much on the internet. Everyone I talk to, doesn't matter where they come from, 99% of the time, we can have a human conversation, interaction, and learn from each other in that moment. It's beautiful.
That's the biggest thing that I usually try and bring up. It's, you could be a Democrat or a Republican, and online you're going to fucking hate each other. But if you just put two people in the fucking room, either they're just not going to talk to each other, but they'll still be respectful, or they'll just have a conversation about whatever's going on in life. But online, it makes it so easy to feed into everything is politics. Everything is my way or your way, and you're a fucking terrorist if you disagree with me.
Yeah, well, you go online, too, right? It's like at all the time online, you feel like the world's about to end because everyone's so fucking angry. Everyone's so just bitter and hateful, and then in real life's not really like that.
And it's not. And from the outside looking in, when you see everybody that's already bitter and angry, be it no matter what clique you're a part of or what political affiliation, everybody is angry. But when you start to add guns into that, people see angry people with guns. What they don't see is angry government who also has guns. And it turns into something where it's, they have guns, they're dangerous because they're angry. Not everybody is angry. Why is everybody angry? Let's just not be fucking angry with each other. Let's not, it's a crazy concept to me that one person is elected to lead the millions of people that live in this country. And think of how vast the United States is. It's so fucking big. There's so many people.
I guess I just look at this, and maybe this goes back to being like, literally when I was on 4chan, the things that they were talking about when I was 15 have all come to fruition now. And it's funny to like see some of that shit and be like, oh, at what point does, it's just, this political divide is very much on purpose, right? Like, there isn't one person who leads. I think if anyone thinks, like, I don't know, at this point, the fact that politics, medical history, and finances for myself can't be private anymore is ridiculous. Like, I have to be a thing. Like, I can't just have political views and beliefs. Like, I have to be somehow clumped into a category that just by saying that you identify with something already makes you, or already puts you in a mindset to associate with that thing. And it's like, there's already a group think that happens just with identifying with a single element like that, right? And nowadays, we have a lot of angry people online because there aren't any other vices. There is a statistic, and you can double check this if you pull it up. It's something like, in the United States of America, like 90% of all tweets, 90% of like all political tweets are made by less than 2% of the population.
Yeah. I remember reading about that. Like, the general demographic of Twitter is just like around middle class or like lower middle class white women or something like that. It was. I
And
don't know
it's
how
like,
true that is, and please fact check me. But
I mean,
it's like
from what I'm understanding, like that sounds right, right? Because I mean, unironically, I believe for the most part, like white women have like ruined the nation, and it's I believe that.
Fuck white
Yeah.
And
women.
it's like, I mean, it's like, and not to say again, like, and this is something to say that there are things that identify as a group that don't account as individuals. Like on an individual basis, something can mean something else
Yeah.
versus being a part of a whole, right? And
Yeah.
why I say this is just like I've seen over time and time again, right now we have these almost surgical divides in the community. And it's fascinating to me to see that you have one group of people who is saying, let's use this comparison. I think this is pretty easy. After COVID, right? Or during the COVID thing, they're like, if you don't get vaccinated, you're murdering people and whatever, and like you should die. Okay. So
Yeah.
just to say, well, just to say for a moment, I'm not making any opinion about COVID in this instance. I'm just saying there are people who believe that if you don't get the vaccination, that you're selfish and you should die.
Yeah. I
And
saw
then
a
you
tweet
have
earlier
people,
today
Well, we were told that in the
saying
army.
if you don't get the vaccination, you should get shot.
Yeah, well, we were
so
told that in
you
the army
have
that
that.
we're selfish if we don't get the shot. But we're
Yeah.
not pressuring
And
you to get it, but you are extremely selfish if you don't get it.
And I'm using the example of death because there are people saying you should die if you do this, or that's what they get. That when Texas had what they had going on with all the frozen, when there was the winter there that was fucking up people, and people were saying like, oh, that's what Texas gets. Like they should just fucking die. Like fuck these people. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So you have at that point the right in opposition, for lack of better terms, I'm going to use right and left here. You have the right being like, wow, that's so shitty. Like, you really think people would like, that other people should die? Like, we're still all human and whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Put a pin in that, because I also hear all the time, kill a communist, kill commies, kill pedophiles, like whatever. I'm like, you can't chastise somebody for dehumanizing a group of people that they believe is in the wrong when you're doing the same
Well,
thing. It's cognitive
and it
dissonance.
sets a precedence.
So, right. And I agree that there's like context and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's if you strip away the context from it, you have at its base people dehumanizing other people by whatever means that means, right? Because it's in a world right now where we can't really trust but verify, in a world where we can't log on and type something in because analytics, depending on what browser you use, what your location is, and whose account you're logged into, you're going to get totally different results on
Yeah.
Google, on DuckDuckGo, right? Everything.
It's designed for it. It's absolutely designed for it.
Everything is propaganda. Like
Yes.
if you're watching a sad commercial for the ASPCA and there are animals that look sad, like anyone in their right mind is going to be like, oh my God, of course I want to donate to these animals. Yeah, of course, because that commercial has moved you to feel that way. I work in marketing. My job is literally to get someone to feel a thing, to buy a thing. That is what you do. Like
Yeah.
that's what you do. And so whether it's a meme on Facebook that says something that makes you angry, or whether it's an ad that makes you feel sexy, or something that makes you feel cool, all of these things are designed to sell us something. And right now, we've all had a drip line of social media feeding us an algorithm that is made to perpetually keep us in this state, especially when like you can't go outside, you can't do certain things, that like peak lockdown. There are friends that I have that I'm just not going to have again. And it's not because I'm not like open to that. They're just fucking gone. Like
Yeah.
all they had was Twitter for their life feed, and they're so fucking depressed and shut off from the rest of the world. I'd be really surprised if I ever saw them again, despite all my efforts to reach out. So,
I absolutely. I've lost so many friends over this lockdown for the same reason. They just went online, and now it became their identity.
Well, and that's
They had
dumb.
nothing else, so they. Yeah.
Like making politics your identity is something that it's dangerous. It's so dangerous to just the fabric of everyone, the fabric of this country, the fabric of society. It is dangerous to make politics your personality, because then you
Yes.
get obviously we're going to still have the divides, but then the divides start to become personal. I remember a time growing up in school where we would debate on, John McCain or Obama, or and it didn't matter. Like, you would debate about it, you had your opinions, and then you went to fucking lunch. Yeah, you went to recess, you went to gym class, you went to other class, and it was over. It was done. Now, though, I'm speaking with my little brothers who are still in high school. They're twins. And I was asking them after the Task Force Doomer episode about what did he bring up? Racial racial critical race theory. I was asking them if they were
Yes.
being taught critical race theory. They said no, but there are a lot more political debates going on orchestrated by the teachers. And what ends up happening is if you do not agree with one side or the other, you get ostracized, you lose friends, and it's becoming people's personalities at such a young age, and it's affecting relationships at such a young age that this generation, I mean, our generation too, is going to grow up and just become so at our core different and unable to overcome these differences and still be civil with each other that I really fear that eventually the kettle is going to boil and bad things can happen when politics are your
I don't know.
personality.
I almost think like it's interesting because my brother's 18. He actually just moved in with Jax and I after graduating high school. So he just went through his junior and senior year of COVID. Funny enough, I have some cousins who are twins who are going into their senior year.
Oh, well.
So I get, when I say like I'm the oldest of 30 some odd cousins, like I just had another baby cousin born like a week ago. So I have a very big family and I'm close with most of them. So I get to have a really interesting perspective with all these kids going through all different ages of school and stuff right now. And what I see happening is what's going on right now is unsustainable. Like there's so much pressure. It's like digging out under a cliffside, right? And it's at that point where you keep taking earth away from it and it's just going to tumble down. Like we can't ever exist in a society. There will never be a government that pleases everybody. That's just never going to fucking happen. That can't, unless you eradicate all opposition, right? Right now, I truly believe we're in a civil war, right? Brothers and sisters
Civil
aren't
War,
talking
yeah, I
to
can
each
see
other.
that.
It's a cold civil
Family
war.
members have denied each other. Like a country, being and growing up in America my whole life, we're the country with the big dick. And it's
Yes.
not even so much that we
Gigantic.
have the strongest military or the most
Veiny.
money, but it's because we have the most presence.
Yes.
So America's ubiquitous. We fill all these little holes all over the world that if we pulled out, if we were an isolationist state during World War II, Germany would have won, right?
Yeah.
But it's because of America's involvement in the world that things have been a little bit different. So we're out there. And in order to fight something like America, you can't just punch it in the face. You have to demoralize it. And this is something that whether or not, there's a lot of alternative theories out there to why America is the way that it is or for how long these things have been going on, whether it's tinfoil hat, Illuminati shit, whatever. Like, I don't know. I think the fact that the word conspiracy theory is negative was because during the Nixon administration, they worked really hard to pair people in interviews and stuff with their crazy alien stories or whatever it is that they had at the time and intentionally made that word look bad with marketing because what was happening was true, right?
It's
So
kind
the
of
word
ironic
conspiracy,
because of all of the things that have been declassified from that era and how fucking horrific they are. So,
well, and that was the thing is Watergate was real shit. So it's
Yeah.
amazing that conspiracy theory, like the actual definition is that a belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. It's basically just that. And people have turned it into mean some crazy fucking thing. And it's like, it's not. It just means that there's alternative shit going on. And it's like we can only speculate because at the end and the bottom of the food chain, we're all just a bunch of fucking plebes trying to make money off a system that isn't always in our favor, right?
Yes.
And I think that what's happening is unsustainable. When I look at my brother and I look at my cousins, I see a generation of very inquisitive kids who for the first time are starting to believe in, like, my brother has incredible work ethic, but these kids don't necessarily embrace working until you die and that's the only thing that's important. I agree with that. Yeah, I'm starting to see some really positive changes. Yes, there's negative ones as well, but it's like this isn't gonna work. Like what? Okay, like I really think too, like let's just go into this, right? Say you have a bunch of fucking gun hating, blue haired, angry, whatever people standing and screaming about how bad things are. And I'm like, what are you going to fight me with? Like the wrong gender pronoun? Like you're going to lose that battle on foot, right? But what it comes down to is I think a lot of people right now have to kind of accept the fact that it's like America has fucking cancer. And there's some people who I see this a lot on, dare I say, the right, being on the right side of the industry sometimes, people who are like diehard, we've got this and these things. And it's like, we have to accept that we have cancer.
Yeah.
Like whether or not you want to believe it, your organs are failing. Yeah. And you have to take extreme measures to fix that, whatever that means. Yeah. Like, what's America's chemotherapy, right? And
that's where it gets dangerous.
Unfortunately,
that
correct,
right there.
Because that's when you do get real extremism, right? That's where you do get people being like, oh, we have to destroy this or destroy that. And ultimately something somewhere inevitably will give. Right now, it looks like that's the general freedom of the public.
Yeah.
And it's like, we kind of keep making compromises because we have to. And all these people talk tough about, even biblically, right? You talk about the mark of the beast and stuff. Who knows? Maybe it is the QR code for the passports or whatever. Maybe it was the fucking internet that we're all forced to have and live our lives off of now and can't function without it. But ultimately, let's say there's a very blatant, this is the mark of the beast, right? And people all interpret it as that. You really think every genuine, I'm going to say genuine, like diehard, like Christian father is going to take a knee, look their 4-year-old son in the eye and say, you have to starve because Jesus loves us? Fuck no, they're going to compromise and survive because that's what humans do. We adapt. We're amazing at adapting. That's what makes us the superior species on this planet. Maybe there's like some sentient like cuttlefish or something. Like I like to fantasize about that. But ultimately, for now, like humans as we know it are the powerful species because we have the ability to adapt and innovate. Dogs can love. Animals can love. Animals can even, some critically think and puzzle solve in certain ways. But as humans, we have the ability to adapt and innovate. We have creativity. We have these things that enable us to go everywhere. In the Silmarillion, the Silmarillion, it's talked about how when God created humans, he gave them the gift of immortality because they were God's favorites. And the reason he gave them the gift of immortality is because they were effectively the get shit done race. As people, because we lived and died so quickly, we had to evolve faster than anything else. Like a maggot that proliferates and turns into flies, or any other species on the planet that replicates for the sake of survival. This is why we can study nematodes and rats in labs, right? Because they breed so quickly and they breed quicker than we do. But as people, we have this gift given to us where we evolve so fucking quickly. And as much as we can make predictions, there have been books and old literature about the times and the dreariness of the world since literally the 13 and 1400s. So every single year, for as long as I can remember, even in my adult life, and I'm going to be 29 this month, there's been people holding signs saying the world will end. And it's like, it just might. But you know what? Some 5 years ago, I lost my brother to leukemia. He was in the military. He was about a year and a half younger than me. He got sick and he died. It was really shitty. But
I'm so sorry.
With that, I learned a lot of them. You know what? I'm not, and that sounds awful, but it's in the way that not all things are good, but there is always good in all things. Yes, it would have been cool if he lived. I would much rather he still be here today, but we didn't even have a relationship. I wasn't even on like speaking terms when I donated stem cells to him. So it's like we ended up having this incredible relationship that we otherwise never would have had. I learned so much about my life and about things that gave me intrinsic and inherent value that I never would have had, I don't think, or at least I don't know how I would have discovered it otherwise. And then my other brother, who's 11 years younger than me, we are so close. We've always been close. And it's like that only made our relationship and life stronger and better. But I don't know. After Riley died, it's just kind of like, we really are just a ball of fucking rock floating through space. And anytime Mother Nature can take us back, this planet will always be fine. People may not, but this planet will. Fucking look at Chernobyl if you need an example, right? You got deer growing with 3 fucking eyes and extra legs and whatever and plants all over. It's doing fine. We figured it out from nothing. It's just like, that's again, that's what we do. That's what we adapt. So I think that even on a level beyond just physiology, but like in psychology and how we do things, like humans keep growing, we keep innovating. And I don't think that it's, you know, useless optimism or something to think like, stuff might change. I just afford myself the room to be surprised. And there's so much we can't do that I just ask myself, what can I do? Because there's a lot we can do. We can build communities. We can, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but damn, I have some friends who are. And through all of this, I've been able to get incredible information straight from the mouth of someone who works in immunology and like building vaccines, or straight from someone who works in epigenetics and understanding the evolution of the human body, and like getting the opinions of those beyond me and forming my own. I can do that. I can cook dinner for my friends. I do know my neighbors. When I move into a new apartment, I make a note for the people above and around me, and I invite them into my home if they need something. Like in the 90s, as a kid, I often say we were like the last generation to play outside. I still had the phone numbers of my neighbors on the fridge. Anyone listening to this now, how many of you guys know your neighbor's fucking phone number? How many of you guys have that in the event of an emergency that you can call on someone above, below, or next to you? That's amazing.
I think community is something that's lost these days. It is so important. But we live, and this is again kind of a tired thing that pretentious people say all the time. But we are simultaneously more connected through the internet and everything else, and further apart than we've ever been in human history.
When talking about the cancer that is happening in America right now, what do you think the solution is to that as Paige?
For me, I believe that I can continue to foster good relationships. I believe that I can have these conversations with an individual, and like a spider web, right? Being at the center of it. If I do my best to be a kind person, God, being a shitbag is so easy. It's fucking hard to be, I guess, for lack of better words, good, right? Good people aren't inherently good because good things happen to them. It's that when faced with adversity, they don't compromise their morals or their beliefs, right? But I can be open. I can listen. I trust people. I trust people. Doesn't mean that I'm vulnerable. I can be open. And I can, for the most part, like, if we really evaluate how much we trust everything that we do, right? Like, when you walk into a building, you're trusting that every fucking architect that formed that did their job right so it doesn't collapse on you. Every day, we trust within reason that the vehicle next to us isn't just going to swerve and hit us, right? That's why we can zone out when we drive. So why can't I extend even that level of baseline trust to other people? And even if this world is a simulation, even if everything's just a fucking projection of my own consciousness and I can't disprove that, like Jax always says, shit, you even play video games to win. If I play a video game to win, why the fuck am I not going to play my life to win? And why would I not be good to people? That's just so much better. It's so much easier to just, and maybe not always easier, but damn it, I think it means more and it has more impact. Like someone can be looking at me who's a genuine racist, someone who genuinely hates people of a certain color or religion or walk of life or whatever. And I would understand that they're coming from a place, like somewhere along the line, that place is coming from genuine fear of loss of what they love. Something has been indoctrinated into them that they believe that whatever's happening is taking from them, is taking their livelihood, their families, right? And I think that we cannot change perception without inception. If I can't understand who it is that I'm speaking to, how the fuck am I going to change their mind? I've changed people's minds about guns. I've changed people's minds about, sexuality, changed people's minds about some stuff. And maybe it's, arrogant to say that not everyone will keep that. I can't guarantee that that'll happen, but I can try. And I think that to learn, to suffer, to help the others through their suffering, through our own, so that we don't suffer in vain, that's the human experience. And right now, that is what's been taken from us. Whether it be online, through the media, through every form of propaganda that's thrown at us, we are made to be 6 feet apart and our heads 6 feet under the fucking ground. I refuse to do that. I will always have a cup of tea and the shirt off my back. If someone knocks on my door, they found my door for a reason. And it's like, I believe in that.
So you think it comes down to an individual
That is an attitude
level?
I wish so many more people had.
Yeah, I agree. It comes down to an individual level, and it's just about human interaction. And that is something that has been taken away through COVID.
It's lost.
And I think that's
it's lost in so many.
It's going to affect us. We're going to see a ripple effect to this, because now whenever somebody has a cough or the sniffles, some people are going to be like, mask 6 feet apart. And I do think in some instances, like in Japan, where they wear a mask if you're sick, and that's just like the courteous thing to do, I think there's definitely benefits to doing so, but you're also free to do it and free to not do it. And you're less shamed, and it's more, hey, you know, I kind of don't want to spread this thing if I cough on somebody, so I'm just going to be a responsible adult. Or some people are forever in their lives now going to be afraid of people that get the common cold.
But I think that there's always going to be something like that, right? Like, I don't know. I just see that what I try to not buy into is people still hold open doors for each other. I've coughed in public and people haven't shied away from me. Maybe there's some of that, but there's always been people who've avoided me for other reasons, or might avoid a guy for other reasons, or what have you. If I guess it comes down to what I choose to focus on. I'm not going to be that person. You're not going to be that person. Right? That's how we make a difference. It's not standing on a podium and shouting to a million people. It's right here, having this conversation and then having it with another. And then maybe, even if it's just a fraction that someone takes, if they take that and implement it in a way that's healthy and good for those around them, great. There's no greater good. There's just what's healthy to do and what isn't.
I definitely agree that, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're
good. Definitely agree that there are a lot of people with your attitude and with my attitude where I'm going to hold open the door. I'm going to try and talk with people in public because, you know, I like talking to people. I like interacting with people. But there will be a large portion of people who don't, who grow up and who live the rest of their lives because of COVID in fear of those who either haven't gotten vaccinated, in fear of those who get the sniffles. And on the counter of that, there's going to be people that have a very, very strong distrust of everybody who got the vaccine. And I think both are equally dangerous in the sense that they inherently, whether one is right or one is wrong, at their core, they create and encourage a divide, and it creates a you against them. And I think the middle ground is something that is lost. Context is lost, and there is a lot of nuance to everything that people don't want to recognize because it's hard to do it. It is easy to say, I'm on this side, you're on this side, go fuck yourself. It is hard to sit down and have that conversation and be like, hey, we're both human. We just disagree on how we're going to proceed with X, Y, and Z.
I would argue it's hard to have that conversation in an Instagram thread, but it's not hard to have that conversation because here we are.
Social media makes it
difficult. And I feel that I've had that. It does. But again, like I wish social media isn't real. The lives we post, the things we do, like we can do our best to be genuine in certain things. It's not fucking real. Just that. Just that. Leave it at that. Like the more we can if we can associate ourselves with the parts of life that matter and disassociate from the parts that don't. Like we don't have a good way of compartmentalizing right now, right? It's unfortunate, but our cell phones, our computers, that's all been forced on us at this point, even in just the last couple of decades, where we're not allowed to exist without having a cell phone or an email anymore. Like you can't sign up. The people talk about, Mark of the Beast, the thing where you can't even get your groceries or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck, we got credit cards.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of places won't even take cash. Yeah. Like, there are people that if you paid in cash, you couldn't buy groceries.
Yeah.
You want to tell me that that's not falling under the same category as those things? Like, how is a cell phone any less oppressive than a fucking vaccine card, right? When it's like you can't sign up for services. You can't have jobs sometimes if you don't have phones. You can't get access to basic needs sometimes without just those simple things. And I don't agree that I don't agree with the fact that, you know, people should be forced to do anything. I think with anything that if there's risk, there should be choice. Absolutely. Absolutely. If there's risk, there should be choice. You know, like with a vaccine, right? mRNA vaccines are something that have only ever had trials with Ebola patients. They're fairly new in technology as far as what they offer. And not to get too crazy into the science of it, because it would only be secondhand. But ultimately, I think what is crazy is right now in the us against them thing, you do have people who are like, oh, you're anti vax. And I'm like, I totally believe in Western medicine. Like, I have meningitis vaccines, I have hepatitis vaccines, I have all these things. But like, to take something that isn't even FDA approved, not that I believe that the FDA is really our friend, but it's a little bit better than not. I'm like, well, at least we could have a comprehensive clinical trial that's been with a controlled group of people with consistent results over 6 months, because that's the like borderline basis for an FDA approval in a clinical trial, I believe, is 6 months of a controlled group where like you take like labs and blood work, find like similarities to say these are potential side effects. Cause like right now, someone will be like, oh, we have to pull this vaccine because there were blood clots. I'm like, you have a bunch of women that's under 100 people. Like, that's not a fucking statistic. Like, I take birth control. That's enough to make me predisposed to a fucking blood clot literally at any given time. So you have these people arguing to pull things with statistics that don't make any sense because they're not a real statistic. And then with like vaccine, like, oh, you're anti-vax if you don't want a vaccine. I'm like, hey, bro, I'm really immune compromised after having what I had done when I donated stem cells. And like, I can't just put a bunch of shit in me willy nilly. Like, I have to really read all the ingredients, understand what they do before I take those risks. Cause I can't take risks again physically like I did when I donated stem cells. It could potentially end my life. So that I think can be mostly solved with the conversation. Unfortunately, if someone is, the loss really is at the people who demonize others and close themselves in, right?
Oh,
Like, if
100%.
that's what
On
they're
each
going
of
to
that.
do. Right. And I just, ultimately, in all of this shit that happened in 2020, the riots never came to my front door. In fact, the riots made business better for a lot of people. It shit on small businesses, absolutely. But I'll tell you what, gun sales were real good. The gun industry profited immensely from the shit that was
Gas
happening.
mask.
The gun industry profited almost better than anyone else out of the fucking riots and COVID in the way that it stands. So
Oh,
people
100%.
talk about people profiting. I'm like, hey, yeah, it was, you know, buy toilet paper, get a shot, you know, sell guns, buy guns. Like,
Yeah.
it's only benefited, honestly, me in my
So,
life, right? Like,
same with gas
with the
masks.
exception of,
Oh yeah,
oh,
gas
absolutely.
mask and Seaburn gear went crazy.
Yeah.
On that note, guys, I feel like we should throw a quick note to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Weapon Outfitters. Weapon Outfitters. Shit, I forgot. I don't have a bit for this.
They're like the Costco of the gun world.
99 cents for your first month. After that, it goes up. That's not true at all. Weapon Outfitters doesn't cost anything. They're also not sponsoring us, but we're just going to shout them out anyway because, you know.
They're good stuff. Bye. No,
Drunk
Yeah,
Nathan.
go
like
see Weapon Outfitters. They're probably not even going to hear this, but
clinical
you know,
drunk
they're
Nathan.
a bunch of cool dudes. Yes.
Well, what is cool though about about Weapon Outfitters too is the fact that, you know, like you have people like Jackson and Roy both really look into the quality of things, not just
Yes.
like, you know, one army guy used it and they're like military grade. And you're like, that's
Yeah.
not how that works. You know, understanding the actual, like I was at the dinner table the other night and this was like beyond me, but we were sitting with a friend of ours who's an engineer and works a lot in the firearms industry with stuff. And he was talking about the ore composition of different metals for different types, some bolt carrier, and they were like fully breaking down the science of each thing and the nuance between the two of like cost versus like availability and where something comes from. And it's like, that's how much Jackson cares. He'll have those conversations and go places to get that information to make sure that it's like, oh, if this is with this will only last for this amount of time. Or if this has this finish on it, it's not going to work for this piece, or that might look cool, but it'll fall apart. And I think cherry picking the things that are of high value are really important. And even being ignorant to the gun industry and just kind of being in it for the last like 3 years, I've learned a lot. Enough. I don't know a lot, but I know enough, just enough to know when something isn't good. And I'm like, oh, these are one of the poor guns they're talking about, you know? Like,
yeah. Well, how about those high point carbines, right?
yeah, no, it's oh my God, I was just I just saw Grantham's video not long ago on the high
Oh
point
no.
he did.
Hey.
It was so
Oh
good.
man,
It was so good, and I just
laughed
love that
so hard.
High Point is like the weeb community that, like, you know, us like weeb otaku trash are like, we're garbage and we know it and we love being degenerates. High
Yeah.
Point's like, we're degenerates, hop on the train.
You know, I respect that super hard as just like a business move.
Yeah.
I remember I went to High Point's page like the day after I watched the review, and there was a couple day old post being like, Garen Thumb,
Yeah,
you know,
this
the review drops tomorrow of the High Point carbine, only the best of weapons for space soldiers, or whatever bit they did. And the first comment right at the top was, this post aged like milk. And I think I laughed harder than when watching the actual video.
If we ever have him on, I do want to ask him what his communications with High Point looked like after the video dropped.
Oh no, it was great. He totally gave him a shout out. Like, they knew what they were in for. And like, first of all, Grantham is a fucking awesome guy. Like, it's funny how many people don't know. Like, I don't know how I've gotten to have the pleasure of like,
he's very kind,
interacting with all these people somehow.
Nice.
But like, Jax and I were over at his house a couple weeks ago, and we were like hanging out, and I made him some cookies because I did some artwork with them, and our dogs had a play date. It was beautiful. But he's like so passionate about what he's into, and like, we hung out for several hours, and it was just so fun to be. It's always fun to be around people who are so fucking passionate. And he like lights up and gets so excited and is like, oh my God. Like, Jackson was talking about some composition of something, and he's like, I don't even know what that means. Tell me what that means. And like, they're sitting down, he's like picking his brain and asking him all these questions. It was really fucking cute.
I like
and
that.
Then it's amazing. It's funny too, like how every time there's beef in the industry over things too, like, I take everything so much with a grain of salt now. Like, okay, so you guys may or may not know this, but my cousin is Matt Best. You may know him as Black Rifle Coffee Company and all that stuff.
Oh
no! What's crazy to me
not actually.
is,
Oh no,
But as you know, they've been under fire and scrutiny for some things that it's wild to me. Like, back when the Kyle like Rittenhouse thing happened, all these people were like, you're anti-2A and whatever. Like, how things get blown out of proportion so much.
Oh yeah, the cancel culture in the 2A community is
tough.
It's so fun.
And they talk. Well, that's the thing. They point their finger at the left for being this toxic, whatever, eats their own. I'm like, we're eating our own.
Yeah.
And it's not benefiting anyone. And it's like when I was talking to Matt about it, he was like, I had actually texted him like, dude, what the fuck happened? This was back during the Rittenhouse thing. And he's just like, dude, he called me and he's just like, this is so fucked up. He's like, I was just on the phone, like, texting Donald Trump Jr. like a week ago about gun right, like, legislation and stuff. Like, they are so ridiculously pro 2A, but like, I can't, necessarily speak on the political commentary of like everyone in that, but I do know that things get blown out of proportion. I think that sometimes you have to question, moves, like, interviewing with somewhere like the New York Times or whatever. But it's like, when I see that,
when you're in the light that much,
appreciate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also appreciate, maybe it's blind optimism at times, but I appreciate the fact, just like I have a bunch of gay friends and trans friends or people who are afraid of fucking guns, that I can get into it. Sometimes when you want to make a difference, you have to step into those other waters to try and make something be seen. And it's unfortunate because, there's plenty of times that I've opened up to people and been like, oh my God, she's just like into guns and whatever. But I'm like, okay, whatever. You're not going to win with everyone. I think that it was much like which Super Bowl was it that Marshawn Lynch was literally like just a few yards away from the touchdown line.
Oh yeah, Seahawks
and they decided to make another play.
Yep.
Yeah, and they were like, just give it to just give it to him and let him step over the line. And everyone was like, why? I think sometimes people make bold moves to try and do something so that if it executes, it works. And it's not always received well. When it is, it can be an amazing thing and it can make a difference, but that's the risk that you take. And unfortunately, we are in such in an incendiary environment right now that maybe from a PR perspective, especially in hindsight, maybe it wasn't a good idea. But I can see and I can appreciate, even if I don't fully agree with the effort that was there, right? So I do know that having been around these people, like I hope to go visit Jackson. I hope to go visit our friend Clean. I don't know if you're familiar with Clean is Clean, but he does like all the Tarkov streams and stuff. A really cool dude. We're supposed to go kick it with him hopefully in September. And like just all these people are such cool, honest, genuine people. And being that close to, dare I say, celebrities, it just made me question every time I've ever seen someone pop up, any celebrity that has shit on them and like passed a judgment, it made me reconsider every time I've ever done that. Or when I do see the wild conspiracies that come out about things, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I was there for that, you know?
Yeah.
Or like when I was over at GT's house, that's when someone had
GT.
he had made a comment on a post that was, criticizing one of T-Rex Arms videos. And he's sitting there and he's just like, ugh. And we're like, oh, what happened? He's like, dude, I just verified that this guy's information about me was correct. And now everyone thinks I'm calling T-Rex Arms like a fraud, a terrible person. He's like, I really like these guys. He's like, he's like, I gotta go make this right. And then like all these people are blowing all this shit up out of a fucking comment. And it's like, there isn't any nuance. And it's our responsibility to understand that there isn't nuance. And ultimately, at this point, you just have to expect the consequences and the fallout, that you have to anticipate that you're going to be misunderstood and just do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to do what you're going to do.
When you're in the public light that much, like anything you say, you can't always be in, like Garantham mode. Garantham, I'm sure, is just Mike, I'm sure he is just a person.
Oh, yeah.
But people expect him always to be Garantham. And anytime he says something or does something in public, it's going to be interpreted that Garantham is saying this. And why is Garantham saying things
it's like
this way?
It's typecast celebrities. It's the same thing, right? Like when a celebrity gets typecast to be one thing and that's the role they always ever play, and then they have to like break through other things, like Jim Carrey playing in The Majestic to try and like break the mold of his, asinine humor, or Adam Sandler playing in a serious movie, right? There has to be that transition, like how Disney characters, eventually have the thing that they do where they're like, look, I'm sexy now, and you have your Miley Cyruses of the industry. Like, those things all kind of have to happen, it seems like, for them to break that mold. But that's not always a thing for these family men or people who just kind of live their lives. Like, my cousin Matt is one of the most genuinely caring, mellow fucking people you've ever met. Like, yeah, he can be like silly and goofy and outrageous, but when we're hanging out, and like I stayed up at their place last February and helped with their Aliens vs. Sci-Fi video. I did the zombie makeup and stuff. It was super fun. And we're just like hanging out watching the fights. And I've got my feet up and, he's drinking a beer and we're just like, it's that. It's so just that. Even when he's hanging out, playing his guitar, talking to people, like not that there isn't like silly and jovial conversation, but people will be like, oh my God, the guy's such a douchebag. And I'm like, he's really fucking nice and mellow. Like, I don't think Matt. You might know his videos, but it's like he and his wife, Noelle, is one of my favorite people. She's so fucking, she's one of the most saint human beings I've ever met. She's so patient and so kind. And she gets so much shit too for like, she's got tits and she is a pretty gal. And so she gets shit on for being, a pretty woman in the industry or just this other thing with fake tits. And it's just like, no, Noelle's a really down to earth, cool fucking woman. And no matter what we do, we're going to be perceived as other things. I'm sure that, my art is more my personality. I don't necessarily, yes, I'm part of my brand, but I don't necessarily have to sell my brand with my own being in that way. It is nice when your likes are a little low and I'm like, time to post a booty pic, and then like you get your likes, you got to shill, you got to do what you got to do. It's that kind of world. But
I mean, I do it all the time. Occasionally, things get a little dicey, and I just post my toes and my butt, and everything's okay again.
I send Nathan nudes
You know,
regularly.
there was Oh yeah, that's how you build strong bonds is through dick pics.
Yeah.
You know,
he's not even joking. He
another.
sends pictures of himself taking a shit like every day.
We're synced up now,
Every
actually.
day.
Oh, that's so special.
We're synced up. The last 2 times we sent them at the same time.
Yeah, we sent them at the same time.
Oh my god.
We're like.
Do you like name them though and like give them good captions, like paintings?
No, he'll just send them without a caption. I'll open it. It'll be like, "See, Bernard has sent you a photo," and I'll open it, and it'll just be like Mitch taking a shit, but it's from the top down, so I can see his naked. Yeah, I can just see all of it.
Well,
just as
that's special.
It's always like,
yes,
we'll be in the middle of a conversation, and I'll just continue the conversation with it. Like, here's me shitting.
But he will just throw a picture. And for the last 2 times, it has happened while we were both on the toilet. The statistical probability of that is fairly low.
Well, we're like women in the workplace when they get like synced up or whatever. Isn't that a myth?
Oh my god, yeah,
we get synced up.
It's magical.
Our poops are synced.
Our poops are synced. Our buttholes.
Why do people listen to us?
Our buttholes are synced.
Mitch.
Well, anyway, the long and short of the fucking shit is I'm blessed to get to know people who are in these industries and doing things or quote unquote, you know, popular in a way. And it's like anyone who hears anything, like, we're in a day and age, you can't even look up fucking medical facts and know if they're true online. You think that the rumor blogs from collective amounts of social media comments are going to be real information? Like, you think that that's going to be real? Like, I don't know. Like, just take it with a fucking grain of salt. Maybe get to know people. Like, even if someone tells you, like, oh, that guy sucks. Like, I hate that guy. Like, I'll take that into consideration sometimes. And for the most part, like, I'm still going to make my own opinion, you know? So I encourage people to just make their own opinions. Don't let people vote for you in any way. Don't let people vote for you. Not about who your friends are. And if you're in a relationship where you got people telling you who the fuck to hang out with and shit, fuck them. Like, do what's healthy for you.
Absolutely.
Straight up.
Agree.
Well, we appreciate having you on. I feel like we should have you on again.
This was a blast.
Yeah, we should have you on again because we like hearing you talk and you got a lot to say. So
actually, yeah. Paige, if you want to come on again, this is fantastic. It's really nice to get you.
Anytime.
I feel like we didn't really talk.
I'll talk shit about anything. So.
Yeah, Mitch and I just kind of like sat back, and you just fucking went off, girl. Like,
that's a little embarrassing.
The Paigeosity podcast.
It's good. It's
now.
very good. Yeah. It's very good.
It makes our job easier.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah. It does make our job easier. This is our vacation week, so it does.
Yeah,
help.
This is our vacation week, so this was the easiest recording we probably had.
Yeah, but like it feels like we have a lot more to say, and we should probably get you into like surprise Krugs when we record with her.
Oh man, Krugs.
Oh, I love Krugs is legit. One of my best friends. I fucking
she's
love
great.
her. I can't say enough good things about
she's
Cameron.
Great.
She's lit.
Fantastic.
She's fucking great.
We should probably censor. Yes, Krugs is fucking awesome.
She's really awesome.
Yeah.
If you
we recorded with her last week, but she was a little too drunk and I was a little too drunk, and then the recording fucked up.
Yeah, it got I was kind of sitting there. We'll get it again. We'll get it again. For every podcast we record, we scrap one. It's
we're at about a 50% hit rate, but I feel like
we hit sometimes. It's all right. But
well, I'm stoked that I could be here. So like, thanks so much for asking me. Like, it's always weird when people are like, we want to hear you talk, and I'm like, all right, if my dumb ass and little bag of life experiences means anything, cool.
Yeah. No, you were lovely to have on, and I genuinely hope that we get you on again.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get you
anytime.
on again.
I mean, you know how to find me, so I'm up to it, and I know Nathan, you and I are gonna probably do a little artsy swap or something.
Ooh.
So
that would actually be really nice.
You need anything.
Yeah, and we've got your Monday character coming at some point in the near future.
Definitely.
Yay, I can't wait to see it.
Will you be in the podcast art? Nathan, are we doing podcast art for this Sunday? That's a you question.
I was planning on it.
Okay.
If Paige's episode comes out this Sunday, I'll have it done for this Sunday.
It will come out this Sunday.
I was planning on drawing Paige in like her style, and then just doing us in our style.
Yeah, kind of like how we did Task Force Doomer. That would be dope.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I was actually pretty happy with how that came out.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good one. Well, Paige, you want to plug yourself? Talk about yourself. Talk about what you got going on, where we can find you.
Oh yeah, so I am Paigeosity on like everything. You can effectively just Google Paigeosity, and you'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, or my website, where I draw titties, make fitties, and do other fine art too. But basically, a lot of tactical weeb shit and everything in between. So if you enjoy artwork. And I'm actually pretty proud of some of my captions I put on my stuff.
They're pretty good.
I time into some of those, and they're pretty stupid. But I'm always like, haha, I'm so funny, but not really because women aren't funny. But you can find me on paigeosity.com or anywhere else. As it stands right now, I've always got a lot of projects in the work, and one of my more fun things that I work on is Sauce Prime, which is my degenerate section of my artwork to keep it away from the Karen crew and Zuck Nation. So if you enjoy anime girls getting ravaged because you are a man of culture, check it out. And I have a password shop on my website called The Sauce, and The Sauce is where you get all the other fellow degenerate hentai style artwork like stickers and shit. Because why not? So yeah, that's me.
Oh yeah. Well, we really appreciate having you on.
Yeah.
I gotta dip out and
Yeah.
catch a flight. I'm going to Florida for all you hearing this. I got my dog already when you hear it, so I'll be posting pictures of that.
Oh, send pics. I can't wait to see
We gotta
them.
make a group chat with the three of us.
That
yeah, please do.
Nice. We have a group chat with Kroogs,
so.
and we just shit post.
Yeah, we do. It's just shit posting.
That's great. Put me in there. We'll all be together.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I talk to all the time, so
she's lovely.
Well, thanks for coming. Oh, shout out to AWS and Applied Gear. The giveaway ends tomorrow if you're listening to this on Sunday.
Sponsors.
It ends on Monday, the next day you listen to this. So if you're listening to this Sunday, that Monday, we'll announce the winner. They're super cool.
Maybe, unless you're in Canada or Europe, in which case, get fucked, I guess.
The next giveaway, I'm gonna just pay for the shipping to whatever country. So we can just do
be careful. You could be sending stuff to like Slovenia for like $90
whatever.
or something. Oh, I just got my Applied Gear belt, the EDC belt. It's actually pretty dope.
Oh yeah, I wore it yesterday for my anniversary. Yeah, it's fucking dope. But
hey, you wore it to a fucking like 5-star restaurant.
Better go get on your plane before you miss it. Yeah, you got a dog
you're
to
fucking
get.
right.
Yeah, go get your dog, Mitch. What the fuck?
Yeah,
we're shilling. Well, I mean, we're not shilling. We're not getting paid for this. We just like the guys, but like
girls.
Yeah. No, go catch your plane.
Yeah.
Girls.
Anessa.
Yes, the owner of AWS
Anessa.
is
absolute sweetheart.
And Anessa's fucking cool.
Yep, dope as fuck. I'm gonna go catch my flight. Pleasure. Thank you.